Hey guys, what's up? It's Kevin for the win, and we're back for another edition of Monster Hunter Rise. Today we are taking a look at an endgame armor known as the Ibushi set. So we have the Ibushi's helm, which gives you wind alignment, focus, and evade extender. On top of that, you're going to see the resistances here are -2 for fire, and there's a lot of abilities that are stacked here. So we also had the Ibushi breastplate, which is wind alignment. Then we have this one, which is Wind Alignment Constitution. There are a lot of skills on this armor. Wind Alignment, Power Prolonger, Evade Window, Wind Alignment, Slugger, Guard Up. You can get a lot of things on this particular armor. Unfortunately, it doesn't have really any gem slots for you to play around with. But if you have a good talisman with gem slots, you should be able to modify it. Going to bring up the full stats right now for these guys. So defense 401 when it's fully maxed out with armor spears. Fire resistance -2. Plus free water resistance, plus free thunder resistance, plus free ice resistance, minus free dragon resistance. So it resists a lot of things that you counter through Hunter rank 7. This armor, if you max it out, will be able to solo straight through Hunter rank 7 and through the full endgame. We're going to bring up the skills all here for you to see. It's quite a lot of things that you get on this armor. Blight resistance and counter strike are from my talisman. That are not part of this set, but as you can see, everything is at level 1, and if you're using, depending on the weapon, free slots, you should be able to gem in our abilities that you want to max out level 3. So Wind Alignment does Dragon Resistance, +1, +2, +3, but it also has 2 air levels, +4, Dragon Resistance at level 4. Level 5, it grants you the effect of Fortunate, which I believe allows you to take less damage and you get more items during your things. Blight Resistant Counter-Strike is something I just have from a talisman. Focus, that's good for Greatsword users. Power Prolonger, this is actually really good for Insect Glaive, so you can keep your triple buff longer. Constitution and Stamina Surge have to do with the amount of stamina depletion, so you can conserve that. Guard is kind of decent. That's good for Lances and Charge Blades. Same thing with Guard Up, although it does work for taking hits. Slugger is one of those things you would use for Hammer. Evade Window can pretty much go for anything with Dual Blades and Insect Glaive. Evade Extender, same thing. Dual Blades, Insect Glaive as well. Flinch Free, which it seems kind of okay at level 1. Level 3, I'm not sure if that actually works online to prevent you from those pesky Lord Song users that tend to trip you a lot. So as you can see, there's a lot of things you could play around with here. And good resistances as well. So we're going to jump into a hunt. The first hunt that we are doing is going to be hunting a Narkuga. Now, the Insect Glaive that I am using for this demonstration, showcase, whatever you want to call it, is the Narwa weapon, which is the very final boss that you fight, at least for now, in the Monster Hunter HR 7 rank story. So, that's the Narwa set. It's the weapon. The Narwa set we will actually be covering on Thursday of this week. I want to show you 2 of the story endgame armors, which is the full set of it. There's 2 separate types of endgame type of armors. There's the ones that have to do with the monsters, where you make the full monster set of that armor. And then there's the endgame, which is required with mix sets, where you take pieces of certain armors and mix it together to get the best maximum amount of skills. We are not going to start reviewing mix sets on this channel until the following week. But I wanted to show, for those of you who might be struggling with your Hunter rank 6 and 7, what you can kind of strive for in terms of the story to be able to get further on. If you're trying to solo it, you could actually just pair up with people online and do it super fast. That's assuming you have people to hunt with. Chances are still with this game very new. Maybe you haven't made some friends in it yet. Maybe you have. But this armor will allow you to solo straight through Hunter rank 7. I cannot stress this enough. You need to max out the armor, though, and that is very, very expensive for this particular set. The Narwa set, which we'll be talking about on Thursday, which is the final monster, is the only armor I've encountered where you actually get it fully maxed out as you've crafted it, so you don't have to waste armor spears. But since we have to get to the Narwa set, this is probably going to be your best thing to do. I'm using Insect Glaive. That's my favorite weapon. I will be focusing on air weapons in the following weeks. Keep in mind that Monster Hunter Rise is just 2 weeks old, so I am going along with this game just like you guys. I sped through the story to be able to start making endgame sets. I don't have a lot of air weapons because I do like to use my favorite weapon to do farming, so I will cover air things. The next thing we're definitely going to be focusing on next week is the light bowgun, and I'm going to show you a mix set for the light bowgun. Then eventually I'm going to also be working on great swords and pretty much any type of weapon that you would like to see focused on for a video on the channel, we will discuss in future weeks. So definitely leave your suggestions for armors, mix sets, weapons you'd like to see focused on in the comment section. I do check all the comments on the channel, usually daily. It does take me sometimes a while to get to them if I'm actually uploading a video or recording a video. So bear in mind that if I don't respond right away, it's probably because I'm busy, but I do respond back to every comment, whether it's positive criticism or sometimes even very constructive criticism, because I have no problem with constructive criticism as well, because constructive criticism gives you room for how you can improve on. So I'm always very welcome to that type of criticism. So we're just going to kind of like hopefully put the beats down on this Narkuga. Now, Narkuga is considered a wyvern, so it does do some dragon damage. And although our armor says -3 dragon resistance, because of the unique level 5 skill, even though we have -3 dragon resistance, we're actually getting pluses to dragon resistance. So we can take a lot of hits. As you can see, Narkuga doesn't really do too much damage to us in high rank. It's pretty much like if it's hitting us for a low-rank monster. Obviously, if it's enraged, it will do more damage to us, so we have to be a little bit careful in that retrospect. Now, since this armor has a lot of abilities that you can actually gem in with Talisman, and one, depending on the weapon you use, depends on if you have gem sockets or not, you could play around with this. Like, if you have a very good charge blade with 3 slots, you could put the guard up and the guard on it just fine. If you're an Insect Glaive user and you are using, let me think here for a second, because I do obviously play Insect Glaive. If you're using the glaive that revolves around crafting it with the cherry blossoms or the blossom insects, that actually is a free slot blast weapon for the Insect Glaive. That is very good. You could put Power Prolonger on it if you had free gem slots for that. My recommendation is usually look for talismans that kind of benefit this particular armor so that you can get at least level 2 and level 3 bonuses off of that. It does take a while to farm talismans. I am going to eventually make a guide as to the best way to do it, but for those of you who cannot necessarily wait for that type of information, my suggestion is a lot of people don't like to do rampages. However, rampage is your best bet. The more rampage tickets that you get, which I believe is called hunter tickets or guild tickets, or something along those lines, those tickets are usually the ones that'll give you 60 and 70 points when they're at level 6 and 7. Those are your best bets to get the higher end talismans that you want. So I would recommend doing a lot of rampages. I know it's a mode that people really don't like to solo, but you could do even some of the HR 6 and 7 ones that are fairly easy. If you are going to build anyway the Ibushi set, Ibushi can only be farmed via Rampage Wind Serpent Ibushi. That is a level 6 HR mission. It does sometimes appear as a HR 7. The difference between the HRs is just basically the amount of drops you get. The drops are better, more difficult that it is. So the higher the level, the better the drops. But since you are going to be farming quite a bit to get this particular armor in Rampage anyway, you should have a lot of tickets to be able to farm for the talismans that you so desire. Obviously, there is some RNG to it. There is still debate whether you can soft scum save to be able to manipulate the type of talismans you get. I haven't actually playtested with this because I'm not a fan of corrupting my save data like some people are. Obviously, you can use cloud save to back up. I'm not feeling that brave, and I don't like to necessarily mess around with my autosave to the point where I could corrupt my file. But best bet is to do a lot of rampages. That way you have a lot of tickets, and then you use the tickets to be able to farm for the higher-end talismans. The best type of talismans you can get are locked behind you completing HR 7's final boss fight. So if you want the best ones, you're going to have to wait at least till you clear and basically see the final boss cutscene, and you've actually taken it down. This Narku is actually pretty close to death already. As I've always said, if you want a lot of good shiny drops in Monster Hunter Rise, always make sure that you mount on the monsters when they're having their territorial battles. That way, when you do a lot of damage to them, a lot of shinies drop, and there's actually a higher chance that you can... Oh, it looks like it's limping away already, so it's close to death, guys. Thunder weapon, though, because it's... Narkuga's, I think, -3 thunder resistance, so it is extremely weak to thunder, and we have the endgame glaive for thunder, which is perfect for this. The Ibushi Glaive is actually really good for dragons that you fight that are weak to dragon resistance, like -3 dragon resistance, I should say. That glaive is really good. It has an interesting rampage ability, where I don't recommend the final rampage ability, but the second one, which is anti-air, says that you do more damage to enemies that are flying in the air. And I will give you a little hint for the final boss. That anti-air dragon glaive is going to be your best friend in trying to clear that hunt effectively and fast. Unfortunately, this set does not have Part Breaker on it. However, this is a little bit of a spoiler for Thursday's video. The Nara set has Part Breaker on it, so if you're looking for a very good Part Breaker endgame set, that's something to definitely look forward to on Thursday. Yes, I am using the new Insect Glaive switch style, which you unlock through the quest. There's two of them. There's one that recoils to Insect Glaive, and then there's the one that strikes down. I'm testing both of them to see which one's better. Most people have recommended the Insect Glaive that gets recoil because it's just a faster recoil. I trying this downward spike thing to see exactly how much damage it does to monsters when you hit them in critical areas like the head. So that's experimentation. So if somebody in the comments is like, oh, why are you using that skill as opposed to the other one, which is better, it's because I like to experiment to see how much optimal damage I can get with the Insect Glaive. Now, some people complain about the Insect Glaive in particular, saying that it's been nerfed. Well, because the mounting mechanic has been changed. Yeah, it is a bit different. But there's a lot of what aerial style used to be in Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate has kind of been inherited in Monster Hunter Rise for the Insect Glaive. So we don't have traditional mounting ability like we used to do, which was kind of what we specialized in. However, now we have like built-in aerial style, which I think is perfect because Insect Glaive was all about being aerial. You can actually do a lot of damage with particularly Insect Glaive. See there's the combo. I just comboed into that, and I get to mount the monster through the new mounting mechanic. There's no monster near here, so we're just going to ram it into basically the edges wherever we can. It'll knock down. Free knockdowns because I have free wire bugs. Alright, so now, because it's down, we can actually just target the most sensitive area, which would be the head. This is where we could do most damage. Try to see. I don't know if that actually hit because it looked like it got back up. Just trying to experiment to see if that did a lot of damage. He's very groggy. His face is broken. His claws are broken. I would say he's very close to death. These are telltale signs that he's about to die. Unfortunately, our sharpness kind of ran out there, so we don't have blue sharpness anymore. That can be fixed with the skill Edge Master, also Razor Sharp. I haven't actually had time to get the talismans for those as of yet. Like I said, we're only 2 weeks into Monster Hunter Rise, so everybody is still kind of just farming things. I am using a Syscat, so sometimes when they see that it's low in health, they actually will set the trap for you. So we're going to take advantage of that, because I do need Narkuga parts for my light Bowgun. So the light Bowgun, actually, the final version of Narkuga is like the best light Bowgun to use so far. So trapping them in this situation is kind of good for us, because we need a lot of parts for it, and you get extra parts for actually capturing the monster. So there's always the debate whether it's better to kill the monster or capture it. It depends on the situation. Like, if you need to get a tail break and you have to cut the tail, then it's probably better to slay the monster. If it's a part that you know is better off getting through capturing, such as a plate, Narkuga doesn't have a plate, but like Rathian, Rathalos, they have plates and they have gems. It's usually better to capture them in those particular situations. Unfortunately, we didn't get any super rare loot, but we did get some advanced spears, which is always nice, because those are the cheaper spears to level up your armor. However, I recommend just making a lot of money and then using hard armor spears, because you just basically automatically level up whatever your armor is to max level. Alright, so that was a pretty good run. Let's see, 10 minutes. 10-minute clear time. Just barely 10 minutes. So that's actually pretty fast for an Insect Glaive. We are not a speed run type of weapon. Those are better left to longsword and heavy bowgun and light bowgun users. So we prefer kind of playing with style. We're doing another hunt right now. This time I'm hunting a Royal Ludolf. Now, if I'm mispronouncing any of the monsters' names, keep in mind that I am not native to Japan. So I'm not native Japanese, so I may butcher some of these names. So if I have butchered some of your favorite monsters' names, please bear with it because I am not Japanese. I am American playing a super Japanese RPG at the moment. So we're hunting a Royal Ludolf, or Ludolf. I don't know how you even pronounce that. It is weak to fire, which is kind of weird because it is a water monster. This should take us probably about 8 minutes to clear, maybe even less. I need basically crest from this monster, so what I'm going to do is just basically bash its face as much as possible so it breaks. Obviously, hitting it in the face in particular is where we could do the most amount of damage to it. If you wanted to on this armor, if you had a good weakness exploit talisman, this would be pretty good to use with Glaives because if you're going against a slow monster like this, you can kind of aerial style its sensitive areas and do a lot of damage that way. So that's a recommendation. For this armor, though, really, I'd say Power Prolonger as an Insect Glaive user is where you kind of want to get your talisman focused on. If you are a dual blade user or a lance user or a gun lance user, I would focus on trying to get a talisman that is evade extender and evade because lance and gun lance have to rely heavily on evasion to be able to do damage and to be able to not take a lot of damage. Dual blades couldn't benefit from evade extender too because they're one of those weapons where they get stuck in these animations sometimes that they can't cancel. And then it's kind of good to just be able to dodge. Evade extender's not bad because it just gives you more dodge radius and it makes you a bit more invulnerable to certain things. So that comes in pretty handy here. As you can see, the Royal Ludolf is already very weak. Some of its face is broken. We want to see completely that yellow dissipate from its face. I was going to say something else, but we are a PG channel and somebody might take the phrase non-PG. So... Alright, gonna get my double buff here. If you're an Insect Glaive user, my recommendation for the Kinsec, which is a lot of debate people have been having, just go for the Kinsects that are the assist type that give you dual buffs. That's the one I'm using right now. I'm using the Monarch a la carte one, which is the Sever one, because I like to try to sever the tails with the bug. Since there's sometimes I'm using a glaive that really has a hard time, case in point this one, which is more like a blunt type of glaive, to be able to cut tails. Alright. I mean, there's still possibly I can, with my switch styles, break the tail with this, but that's why I use the severing bug, which comes in handy. It severs things a lot quicker. If you have part breaker, that actually makes life a lot easier with this particular bug. We could have used blunt also if we wanted to just... break the crest, which is basically the main of the Royal Ludolf, easier. So that's something we can do. All right. I know where it's going. This is going to seem like a waste to do this, but we will actually be able to take a shortcut, although it won't feel like it at first. We are going to climb all these stairs with our Palamute, or some people call him Palamute, but that's not right. It's supposed to be pronounced Palamute because it's a dog, so it should be a mutt. And so we're going to climb these stairs because this is actually a shortcut, and we'll slide down to where it is particularly at the moment. This seems like a long way around, but it's not. Trust me, it's only a couple seconds. And when we slide down, we'll get to that area actually faster than if we were to just go completely around the map. I think there's a hidden camp actually associated with this, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not 100% sure, though, so don't quote me on that. I might have already activated it, or maybe not. I think there's something important around here to my discretion, because there are hidden camps that you need to unlock specific pieces of armor and stuff. That's kind of subquest. So I'm also looking for subcamps, so trying to multitask here. All right, we got our double buff, which is red and orange. Now we got red and white. So we got Triple Man. Triple Man Insect Glaive, for those of you who don't know the triple buffs, means we take less knockback. We get a little bit of infinity. We have high-grade earplugs automatically as well, so it's very important to get your triple buffs off. We also attack faster, so that's incredibly important to attack faster with this particular weapon. So always make sure, as an Insect Glaive user, to maintain your triple buff. if you're not triple buffing, you are not playing Glaive right, and it may feel weird. So it takes a little while getting used to at first. My first Monster Hunter was Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate, which is where Insect Glaive was introduced. I was originally playing Dual Blades in the beginning, but I just didn't like that particular style. And then I messed around with Insect Glaive, and I've kind of always been that. I also do main Greatsword. I do also main Gun Lance, although I haven't played it in a very long time. And I also main Light Bowgun and Bow and Arrow. Those are my favorite weapons to use in Monster Hunter Rise. So you'll be seeing a lot more of the more varied weapons in near future. Like I said, 2 weeks into Monster Hunter Rise, so I do my ultimate favorite weapon first and get all the particular weapons of that tree that I want. Then I focus on earthing. So the next one will be Light Bowgun, because when you go to hunt online, there's always a problem when you're trying to do the harder hunts that people only want to play with gun users. It's kind of a really annoying thing. It happens quite often in Monster Hunter, all of them, when it comes to hunting, because everybody wants to do Hame runs where they just kind of lock down some of the harder monsters like Rajang and I think maybe even Rathalos this time around, because Rathalos has gotten significantly harder. And also the new bug monster, Ragna Kai, I think it was called. I'm butchering the name, but it's the flaming spider. He's one of your urgents. I won't say from what level. So people tend to online want to just hunt with gun users, heavy bowgun users, and light bowgun users. And light bowgun users have always been really good at statusing particular monsters in the past. I don't know particularly right now, because there's only one light bowgun that is being recommended, which is the Narkuga one, which is the Night Owl, maxed out. So, and that one looks like it's element. It mostly pierce and rapid up shots. I don't see it like the Kongala bowgun that was featured in Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate, which was more focused on statusing, which was really good for the Hame runs, where you have 3 heavy bowgun users and then a light bowgun user. So what you're supposed to do is get into basically like a score position. So it's like each one of you takes a corner spot. So it's 3 of the heavy bowgun users, and they just go firing, wailing on that monster with their clustering shots and, you know, all their heavy shots and their crouching fire shots. And then the light bowgun user generally has to be a little closer. Generally, you want them near the head, and they're just firing off like the status shots if they have them, and the pierce shots and everything. And what you're supposed to do is just constantly between the 4 gunners, constantly flinch the monster and stun it and status it to the point that pretty much they tend to die within 3 to 4 minutes if you have a very well-coordinated team. So for anybody who's new to Monster Hunter, when you see online and it says Hame runs, that's basically what a Hame run is. 3 bowgun users that are heavy bowgun and 1 light bowgun user. And if you try to join their room and you're not any of those type of users, they will kick you automatically from the room. They don't like Blade Masters because they're just trying to do super cheap lockdowns to take care of some of the harder monsters, and they're all about like speed and efficiency. If you are a Blade Master, Blade Masters tend to have a very different style and disrupt the strategy. So that's why they generally, Blade Masters have to kind of stick together and kind of always end up fighting a bit more, because they have to deal with the fact that they trip people more, as opposed to bowgun users. When they just hunt with bowgun users, never trip each other because they're more coordinated and are in specific designated positions to coordinate their attacks. So those are kind of the differences. That's why sometimes it's very hard to get into a room, or that's why maybe if you're a Blade Master, you've been kicked out. And, you know, it's kind of unfortunate, but that's kind of how it is. Gun users tend to stick with gun users online, and then Blade Masters tend to stick with Blade Masters. Sometimes you make friends where you have a bowgun user. I'm one of those bowgun users, and that they will actually just do Blade Master hunts because they don't mind working with other people, and they can coordinate as well. It just takes a very well-organized group that knows to stay out of each other's way and still be able to lock down the monster that way. Because there are ways to do it. Like Sword and Shield users can status, bowgun users can constantly flinch. Glaive users used to be the purpose to mount. Obviously, that's changed, so maybe now it'll be just focusing on aerial attacks. And hammer users basically usually get the head because they would just be able to knock out things, because they automatically usually tend to knock out things much easier and faster. So for anybody that's new to Monster Hunter, I just gave you like very advanced, intermediate basics as to how hunts between veterans and experienced players generally work when it comes to Monster Hunter. Like, great sword users and usually hammer users and hunting horn users always are the ones that get dibs on the face when the monster's down or they're near the monster. Great sword users and not light sword users, but great sword users and also long sword users generally also can take dibs on the tail because they have the best chance of cutting the tail as opposed to users. Dual blade users also usually get that. Glaive users can do it, but not as well as effective. So we took down the Royal Ludoff. That was actually super fast. We did get to break its mane quite a bit. We did mount the monster, the opposing monster in territory battle, get more drops there. You see the shiny drops in the back. I'm going to get them quickly. I was more concerned getting the cars first because the cars are very, very important. Now, these shinies tend to stick around a lot longer than they used to in previous games, so that's good. So that's pretty much the Ibushi armor. As you can see, it is extremely strong. It tanks just about everything that it's not weak to when maxed out. I'm going to take a picture of my fallen prey here. Wow, look at that face. It's just busted wide open. So that's going to do it for today's video. If you like this video, make sure to give it a like. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, consider subscribing to the channel. We do Monster Hunter Rise videos, basically armor reviews on every Monday and Thursday. We will branch out a little bit more with Monster Hunter as the weeks progress. I want to get through some of the weapons and the armors first to show you what you should probably be striving for in terms of endgame story completion and then endgame for online play first. So that's kind of where I'm trying to prioritize things. So, all right, we got a good amount of loot here. I'm going to bid everybody adieu. Make sure to give the video a like, subscribe if you're not already subscribed to the channel, and I will see you Thursday for the next Monster Hunter Rise video.